Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're finishing up the last few details on the Tribute Split project. We have to glue on this fender on the front end. We also have to install the brand new dynamic Corvette big block Stinger hood, get that to fit real nice, glue the fender caps in place, and get this thing ready to ship. So be sure to stick around. In the last video on the Tribute Split, I got most of the front end installed on this car. I still have to tie in the inner fenders to the fender caps, and I also still need to install the fender on this side, which we have a new one coming. So while I wait for that, I think I want to start off by getting all these clamps off and the fixture out here. Let's get this core support actually mounted where it's supposed to live, and then let's work on getting the hood hinges on. Let's get the hood on here and see how that fits. We're probably gonna have to do some sanding, maybe a little bit of trimming. And then once we have that living where it's supposed to, we can figure out where this fender cap is going to sit. Because if you don't know, that you can adjust this up or down to fit the curvature of the hood. So since we have a custom hood, custom front end, custom car, custom chassis, we need to make sure that everything fits really nice. So we're gonna come through here and try to get this curvature as close as we can to the hood. One of the next things we need to do to get this thing ready to ship is get wheels and tires on it. But first, need to put on the calipers and some rotors. So we'll go ahead and get those slapped on and get this thing down on the ground for the first time. And then we can start to figure out what's going on with this core support and get everything all shored up in the front. I had the car on my Ford Donuts. I took it outside, spun it around so we can get better access to the driver's side to do this fender, and also so I could work in the back. I put on the rear splash shields that go back in there. And then I'm working on getting the hood to fit. And to do that, I wanted to do basically 5 things at once. We're still not done on this side, so I need to support the front end with jack stands to make sure that it's not drooping. The core support is not fully mounted yet because sometimes with aftermarket frames or front ends or stuff, it could be off a little bit. So I am just letting the core support sit in there. Then I put my nut plates in here that hold the hood hinges. So I let the hood hinge determine, the hood and the hood hinge determine where the nut plate needed to be, which was perfectly centered. And then I bolted the hood up, made sure it was in the right spot. And then I'm going down here to this nut plate and I drilled my first hole at the bottom and connected the core support. Now I can work on the top and get the angle correct to make sure all the holes line up with the core support. So that's looking good. Height-wise, we need to figure out, does the inner fender need to come up? Does it need to go down to fit the hood? So we're still in a very, very rough phase of fitting just because not all the bolts are in for the hood hinges. And everything's just loosely mocked up. But you can see right now the driver's side's actually in pretty good shape. The front looks pretty good. This can be adjusted up or down with the rods that go from here down to the core support, and those were back ordered, so I don't have those. So the passenger side, unfortunately, is not going as well as the driver's side. You can see from about over here to about here where the hood is higher than the front end. So if this bond seam was a little low, I would be inclined to think that it would really only be this area that was low. To me, it's looking that the hood is just too high on this side. So what I'm gonna do is actually cut the hinge and shorten it just a little bit, and then we can use the rod to push the front end up to bring this up to where it needs to be, and that should basically get us there. Steve over at Dynamic Corvettes did a video comparing different manufacturers of hood hinges, and they varied quite a bit. I believe these might be Paragon or Corvette Central. Corvette Central hinges were the tallest, and Corvette America Centrals were the lowest. So if we had a Corvette America hinge, this hood would probably fit level right now. So that's not the case, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull this hinge off. I'm just gonna take a cutoff wheel's thickness off of it, channel it down just a little bit. That should be just fine. So I have the hood installed and pretty much adjusted where it needs to be for this part of the project. This dynamic hood fits really nice. This is actually one of the best fitting hoods that I have used so far, and it fits the front end really well, which is nice because they made both parts. I had to do a little bit of trimming up in the front on the edge of the front end just because there was a little lip that stuck out, and when you open the hood it would kind of grab that, so I had to remove that little bit of flashing. But overall, she fits real nice. So the front end is attached, or the inner fenders are attached to the core support here, and I was able to use the original holes and these brackets, which tells us that everything's in the right spot. The hood hinges lined up with their nut plates, and then the core support mounted up to the Roadster Shop chassis really nice. So everything is where it should be. I did have to manipulate the hinge on this side a little bit, which again I think is perfectly acceptable. And I also did put a little shim in there just to bring the back up just a hair, but overall she fits really nice. It's a little snug on the side right here just because this still needs to be glued down, and the hood can be sanded a little bit, but I want to leave it tight so he has some meat to work with. So now that we have that accomplished, if we push this down, you can see it lines up at just a little bit low right here. But I think it's really, really close to fitting perfect. The gaps look nice on it. Going this way, the gap across the hood looks good. And then the one on this side looks pretty good. So I think that was one of the hardest parts of the program. I was a little worried about getting that to fit because the hood on Overkill didn't fit even remotely close. So this one is nice to know that this fits well. So on this side I have this inner fender kind of mocked up to where I think it needs to be. I put a piece of steel here to represent the gill that we're missing, and everything seems to fit pretty well. So I think what we can do is work on gluing this seam on, this one's easier to see, but on both sides, the front end to the inner fender. Let's go ahead and get those seams glued up. So I popped the hood and removed all my clamps from the inner fenders, so that way I could put a clamp in here and push off of the frame to bring the fender top up. So by pulling the fender lip up, we've exposed the inner fender. So now we can go and put glue in here, pull this clamp off, smush it down. We have to put a little bit of glue on the underside of this as well. Last night I got the hood surround bonded to the inner fenders, and I did a little work off camera to get this jig set up. So I used my fender / front end installer jig, and I put some clamps pushing straight down on the front end, and I also had to put some clamps going to the chassis to keep the jig from picking up so we can actually apply good pressure. So that worked pretty well. Now we need to get the jig out of the way because we got this guy in fresh out of the mold. So I have all my clamps set up here to hold on the driver's side gill, and Dynamic actually looked like they trimmed this one up a little bit more than the other ones I had, because this one basically just fit right on the car. I didn't have to do any trimming to the perimeter of it at all. All I did was scuff the inside and do a little bit more prep in the door jamb just to make sure that this follows the profile nice, but this one is in good shape. It's fitting up well, and I swear every time I do one of these, I clamp it up differently. This is a different way than I did on the passenger side. I have some of these little boards here acting as different points to push off of, and it basically just looks like a clamp store or a clamp rack. So we just have her covered head to toe in clamps. So now it's time to pull all 965 of these clamps off, put glue on this panel and on the fender, get it clamped up. So I let this fender cure up overnight, and it looks like everything turned out real nice. We have nice gaps. Now we got to pull all the clamps off so that way I can scuff all of this glue up and get some nice looking body lines, get the jig off, get this thing back on its wheels and tires. I need to come through here and open this door up again. Might be partially glued shut, but I also need to open up this body line or this door gap just a little bit so that way the door actually opens properly. I made everything real tight. We'll come in here with a cutoff wheel and open that up just a tickle. I also need to remove a couple screws that I had in the floor. We'll get this thing wiped off. I started vacuuming the inside of this dude, and we have to get it ready to ship basically at this point. So we're in a pretty good situation. Well, I got the front end cleaned up here, and the Tribute Split is done and ready to go home. We just have to wipe her off and put a couple stickers on it, but I'll save that for the next video. I have to get going here. But got to give her a little bit of branding because she's going to be going like 2,500 miles on an open trailer through the US. So it'd be nice to put some Mid-Year Mitch decals on here. But this front end turned out really nice. Guys, I'm telling you, this hood fit really, really well. If you close this, I mean, come on. This is some nice stuff here. This is going to be a really nice car. So she just needs dusted off, and she will get that on her long journey home. But overall, she's in immaculate shape. I did some sanding on the jambs. I had to use my little cutoff wheel to come in here and open this door jamb up just a little bit. There's still junk in it. I just wanted to open up just so you can literally open and close the doors, but they both open and close nice. Got the inside vacuumed out, and yeah, that's it for this rig. So we turned a pile of junk, which started out in the boneyard, into this with the help of a lot of Dynamic Corvette fiberglass and a lot of labor and some C4 donuts that fit several inches in the body. It's gonna look a little goofy going down the road with these little baby donuts, but at least they're black, so they look kind of tough. But man, she's gonna look good. You can fit a lot of rubber under the front and the back of this thing. So what I want to do for the next video that you guys will probably see is pull this rig out. So what I want to do next with this thing is, once it's all cleaned off, pull it outside. Let's get some cool shots around it, some cool pictures. And let's pull my red split window up next to it. Not too close. This one's dusty. We don't want to get her dusty, but close enough so we can get a visual comparison for how curvy this one is compared to my original car. So I think that'd be a cool comparison. I haven't had a split window leave in this type of condition before, so this is a unique opportunity, especially since my split window is this color. So I'm pretty fired up about that. That's gonna do it for this old girl. She's hitting the road tomorrow, so wish her luck, and maybe you'll see her crossing the country somewhere. But that's gonna do it for this video. That's basically gonna do it for this project. I have one more video on this car where it'll be basically a beginning to end, and I'll show you it being loaded up on the trailer and going home. But that's basically gonna be it for this car on my channel. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this series. We have more stuff coming up that's exciting like this, but it's cool to see a split window basically come from nothing to this. So Tribute Split is an awesome car. I hope you guys really enjoyed this series, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I have a lot of work to do, so I'll catch you guys later.